Good evening. Well, morning, everybody. So tonight we're gonna do a quick demo of a Spline IK. Now here I have this is Kensley's little mouse. Just using this for an example today for us to get started. And I have no idea if you can hear my music or not, but we're gonna turn on the Mandalorian that's playing. So to create a spline, I've already done a temporary skinning of the tail so we can see how this is moving. And I've already dropped in our controls, but our controls aren't doing anything. So in the meantime, we're gonna use our display layer to lock the geometry down. And then we are real quick, we are going to get started. So for a spline IK, you need to be in the rigging tab, skeleton, create IK spline handle. So we're just going to bring up that settings. And we want it to automatically create curve for this. And the number of spans, we're going to change this to 3. Because curves usually generally work better in terms of 3 than just 1. So I think that should be good enough. So we're gonna also deselect auto simplify curve. We're gonna deselect that so then we don't have to worry about the number of spans. So all that is needed to be done is we're gonna select our base to our tip of whatever we want our spline IK to be. Then it generates our IK handle over here. And we should be seeing a rotate value. Interesting. Okay. Let's redo that again. I am not for sure why this is not doing what we want it to be done. Okay, well, that's right. These IK handles, they behave a little bit differently. So we're going to name this spline tail IK handle. And then we're going to name this spline tail curve. So we can know what we're worrying about. Okay, so as you guys saw, as I was moving that curve, the tail moves along with it. So if we just go here to X-ray view, and we're just going to isolate this curve so we can just see the curve. We're going to select a point and see this is what we want it to do. We want it to be able to move according to this curve. So the joints in the tail, this line IK, are moving where this curve needs to be. Now we're going to change these controllers and we're going to give that be able to connect it up to the curve so it can do what we just did there with the control point. So we're going to go to isolate view. This is really important, so follow along carefully. We're going to right click and control vertex. And we're just going to select the endpoint joint or curve. Sorry. And we're going to hit this clusters button. So this will automatically create a cluster according to our selection. So the control vertex that we have. So I'm going to select that. It'll create it for us. Now, when we move that cluster, the tail, the curve will move accordingly. So we're just going to create the rest of them. So select our curve, control vertex, select the vertex, hit the cluster joint or button. And I'm just going to hit the G key to repeat that process as we move down the line. Now you're going to want every single one of these clusters to be created. If it's one of the kind of the square looking ones or the circle ones, you want both of them. Now we have all those clusters created and they're ready to go. Now we just need to attach them to our controls. So I'm going to select them all. Go to modify prefix. So this is going to add a prefix. We're going to call it spline tail underscore. And then that will create our naming for us super quick. Now I'm going to do parent constraints on these cells. You can drop them like the clusters directly underneath like the curves that you need. But for this case, sometimes weird things can happen. So we are just gonna do a parent constraint. So we're gonna select this tail control 01, and then we're gonna select the first cluster. We're gonna do parent constraint. There we go. Now we're gonna do the second one, and I'm gonna skip a few. So this is the second cluster. Here's the third, second control, and then we're gonna create that parent constraint. Oh, I selected the wrong one. I used the third, not the second. Parent constraint. And then we're gonna do that for this should be the fourth one. Parent constraint. And the fifth one, parent constraint. And now the last one, parent constraint. I'm gonna take a look. Cool. Not moving 100% exactly where I would expect that to be. So this will create a problem for our animator because they would expect as soon as they're pulling that to be at that point on here. So Rook, I'll just continue forward and we're gonna do, actually, sorry, I'm thinking on the spot. We are gonna redo this tail. So we're gonna delete all these clusters that we just created and our spline IK, and we're gonna do it again. We're gonna go to skeleton, create spline IK handle, deselect auto simplify, and try this one more time. Not gonna go quickly, so I won't say exactly everything I'm doing, except just naming it. Isolate. I am sorry if my Discord is very loud. It is loud to me. Okay, we have a few more here. A lot more actually. So this will be good. This will get us a lot more deformation that we need. So we're just gonna use that G key to automate this process. Now, if the simplified version works for you, perfect. We are, for this particular tail, we're just gonna add a bunch more clusters, but still keep that same amount of controls that we had. I'm gonna add a prefix. And jump out of here. Okay. Okay, so there we go. It's adding them almost per joint, just about like super closely. So we're gonna do here at the base, we're gonna select cluster 1, parent constraint. And then we're gonna jump to, see, this is 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do the fourth one, parent constraint. Oh, nope. It's the fifth one. Because I saw it in my viewport. Fifth one. So this should be our seventh one. There we go. And our ninth. Here we go. And our last one. Here we go. Grab our controls, take a look. Okay. Yep. Starting to behave the way we'd expect it to. But we're having a few controls still sit back. So this control or cluster, sorry if I say controls, cluster is sitting a little further closer to this one. So we are just going to give it the same parent constraint as this control right here. Or there's two of them. There's a couple of them in here. And this one right here, number 10, we're gonna give it an influence of both. Number 10. And then in here, we're gonna change it 0.60 and 0.4. So the one will have a 60% influence and the other one will have a 40% influence out of 100. And then do that control cluster and then back to number 8. So both of these controls I've given a parent constraint to this one. It doesn't create 2 parent constraints. It just gives it 2 like inputs here. We're gonna go 0.5, 0.5. So now it will interpolate in between like the halfways. Get that moving as we would expected. We're going to repeat that process here again. Number 6. Open it up. 0.5. Number 4. Point 5. And then just with this tail one, we're going to give 2 and 3. This tail will have complete influence over them. There we go. So now we have our tail all kind of set up and acting the way we want it to. So this will take into account like kind of just where you're placing it in space. So you can have it go curvy, kind of like animate it a little bit more by hand. And we are good to go with this spline IK. So then for your groupings in your hierarchy and stuff, I would just select all the IK handle, the curve, and all the clusters. I'm going to group them, call it spline IK rig. And then my controls, I would nest them accordingly. So let's say we wanted to nest these a little bit. So whenever we do this tail one here at the end, we want them to kind of move a little bit more predictably like FK. But if I was to do it for every single one of these, so if I had all these joints parented underneath each other, so when in my outliner, it was a big, long, like stair step. As I move the base, see that this one follows along. So this is where if you want to be able to do an FK, kind of like curve your tail and then be able to have it go straight, you're gonna have to get a little bit creative. So I will cover that in our next video.